up, everybody, and welcome back to another Flex Swim podcast. How you doing, Harry?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. What about you?
Very, very good. Today we have an amazing interview with Coach Steve Jungbluth of the University of Florida. He is a assistant coach, associate coach now, and we had a really cool conversation with him because because the University of Florida, we both swam there.
Yep.
And they've been going through some transitions recently.
They have.
Head coach Greg Troy retired, and he's now coaching the post-grad group, so that means plenty of people get to step up. And some of our favorite people from this staff, Anthony Nesty, Steve Jungbluth, both are in high ranks. Anthony Nesty is the new head coach, and Steve just right under him. And these are interesting characters because they coach in a specific way that not a lot of people coach in the world of swimming.
Yeah. I had a little bit of an opportunity to swim with Coach Steve some when I was there. I overlapped with his group a bit. He'd work with breaststrokers sometimes. That's pretty much all I swim. So I obviously got to work with him every once in a while. I really respected him as a coach. I think he's done a lot of great things for the sprint program at UF. I think they've made really great leaps and strides since he came there. Nothing against what was going on there before, but I think he's really taken them to the next level.
Yeah, for those that don't know, the University of Florida sprint program, which we can now say Florida is a sprint school after the work that Steve Jungbluth has done.
I don't think you can have somebody go 17.6 and not be a sprint program.
Yeah, so if you didn't catch that, Steve Jungbluth is and was the coach of Caeleb Dressel when he would spend his time on the college team at UF. He's obviously coached him going 17.6. He's also coached guys that were breaking 19 when 19 was the barrier. He just recently got his sprint group at the University of Florida into national championship status, and they won a relay championship. So overall, he basically took a program that was not known at all for good sprinting. Florida's always been a mid-distance, mid-IM, and long-distance program. He came in, he whipped them into shape, and I present to you guys Steve Jungbluth.
Enjoy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
How's everything been?
Very good.
Yeah, the start of the season's going all right and everything?
Yeah, we're about 6 or 7 weeks into the season now, and had our first couple of meets under our belt last weekend, the week before. We've seen some good signs and some things that we need to work on, obviously, and that's typical for early
part of the
season
process.
meets. Yeah.
What do you normally see as like the beginning of the season? What do you actually want to get working on? I mean, we both have experience in the UF swim program, and I know in the past it's always been really hard technical work. Working on drills with strokes and all that kind of stuff. And is that still the same way?
Yeah, a lot of we call them fundamentals now. We're trying to put hard terminology on different things and drills, but fundamentals too, like fundamentals that as you would differentiate between drills would be streamlining off the wall, not taking a breath off the wall, keeping your turns tight, not breathing off the wall, finishing to the wall every single time. And surprisingly, even at this level, a lot of the younger guys still need to be reminded of finishing to the wall every time. Little things like that. So a lot of fundamentals.
Yeah, and I know you guys obviously do like captain's practices. Like you guys let the team kind of go off and do their own thing. They'll sometimes play games, but they'll mostly work on getting themselves in shape and more fit for the beginning of the season. Is that correct?
Yeah, we started out, and we did when we first got here. They were running some captain's practices, and I think they might have got in a few times. And now I know they also went over to Flavett Field and played some ultimate frisbee and maybe some soccer or something. I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's the best place to go right there.
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago, you guys did the famous trip to the PJs.
Famous now.
I mean, I would
say so.
I would call it famous based off of just what we did from our experience, but I guess kind of expand on that and how that actually started.
Well, it started, I believe it was 6 years ago or so, and Coach Nesty has had a lifelong friend in one of the senior level officers down at Patrick Air Force Base, who is a PJ, and I guess they were talking, and they thought it'd be a good idea, so we went down there then, and we got a they're the special operators of the Air Force, so they go through extensive training. I think it's I want to say maybe 8 or 10 week long indoctrination, and then they said, I was asking them, they said they have a 2-year training period before they can actually go on any mission. So it's just, you know, a high level of physical and mental.
Is that like fitness training, or is that more so like situational training?
I think it's everything. I think there's different schools that they'll go to, whether it's, and I don't know all the details, I'm not an expert, but just from what I've heard from them, you know, they'll do an evolution of rescue swimming. You know, they'll have to do EMT class. They're all certified paramedics, I believe, so they have to do that, and they'll.
Yeah, so prep for like all the different environments they might find themselves in: water, air,
exactly.
Rescue, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
for every situation.
Man. That's crazy. Yeah. And when you bring the team to the PJs, what is kind of like, I guess, the number one goal that you want to get out of it?
What I like is, and I think what we wanted out of this was 2 main things. I think rose to the top: teamwork and leadership. I would wager to say that there's probably no better organization on earth than those guys in the military, the special operators, special forces guys, to learn teamwork from and to learn leadership from. Because if we don't have good leadership in athletics, you have some losses. You don't win a championship,
right?
Okay, but you go on. But if they don't have good leadership, you know, people's lives are on the line.
For sure.
And they spoke about that. They had some memorials in their workout room.
Wow.
Of guys that they had lost recently. And as they talked about them, 1 or 2 guys started choking up. Obviously, they become good friends. You know, recruits ask me all the time, "Is your team tight?" And you know, when you have an elite level team, whether it's in athletics or like them, you have to become tight because you rely on one another so heavily to accomplish the mission, to accomplish the goal, to accomplish the team goal, that you become close. You get to know each other, you know, very well.
Yeah. I mean, I guess bringing that kind of like military mindset into swimming and like how you'd run a team and everything like that. I mean, just off of our experience with the University of Florida swim program, like my freshman year, we toppled Auburn's massive streak of winning SECs for that many years. And 16. I feel like 16. There you go. See, I'm even forgetting.
That's right. Old. It was a good year.
And my biggest thing that I feel like I saw, and I was young and I was a freshman and all that kind of stuff, was that teamwork and leadership comes from different realms. It's not necessarily the guys like Marcin or, you know, the big dogs that are on top of the podium, but it can be, you know, the people that are leading the back of the lane, but they have that mental attitude. They're getting to the wall and they're feisty.
Different kinds of leadership, right? There's, you know, lead by example, and there's like the more vocal leadership.
For sure. And yeah, I guess that's kind of like, that was one of the first things that kind of snapped with me when I got here, was like, I expected it to be kind of this pile of people at the bottom that are working to be the number one. Whereas it was kind of like a collective pyramid of people, where it was, they're the people at the top that know that their role is to win because they've been there. There's the people that are all within it that are working their way up to that position, but at the same time they know that everybody collectively has the role of, let's be leaders. You know, let's implement this teamwork into it. So I guess kind of rounding it out, what is, are there signs that you can get from a team, especially in the beginning of a season, of like who's taking that role on? Are there implementations that you can?
Yeah, like what kind of things you can look for? Exactly. You know, who might become your leaders? Yeah,
I mean, they may be like running captain's practices, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic to talk about. There's definitely signs that you look for when you're recruiting, and there's definitely signs with the younger guys that you're looking for, and all the guys, and who's going to develop into this or that. I remember one year, our senior class walked into the head coach's office and said, "Look, coach, if it's all right with you, we don't want captains." And we all looked at him like, what are you talking about? They said, "None of us feel like we could do this well alone, but he's good at this, he's good at that, I'm good at this, he's great at that. Collectively, we can lead this team better." And it was fantastic that they had this awareness of the different elements of leadership. Like you said, there's leadership by example in different areas, and there's also there's vocal leadership. And when you see people rise to the top like that, you know you're going to have a good year. And we had a great year that year. Those guys were fantastic leaders, and there has to be an understanding of what is needed, and that came from those guys. They were mature enough and smart enough to understand that without any coach telling them.
Yeah.
This year, we were a little nervous that, you know, who is going to be the leader now. We had such key personalities last year. We had 3 individual NC2A champions graduate. Olympians, American record holders. Who is going to step up now? We felt like there might be a massive void, but we got the guys together and sort of explained. Coach Nesty sent out some summer reading for some of the guys. That was very helpful, and the coaches read it too. It was real helpful, and we have different guys taking on different responsibilities, whether it's community service. Hey, I'm going to get the guys together, and we're going to go and volunteer our time at the Food for Kids.
I saw that on somebody's account. Maybe it was yours. Yeah,
we posted some pictures on Instagram.
Yeah,
it was great. We were there for a few hours. I think they said we loaded about 3,000 pounds of food and organized it and got it moving to classes. And then there's leadership as far as work ethic goes and holding your teammates accountable, whether it's in or out of the pool. And I was talking to one of the seniors, I think 2 or 3 days ago, and he was telling me, I said, I'm a little worried about one of the freshmen. He said, yeah, I've taken him to lunch a couple of times. We've sat down and talked. And I didn't ask him to do that. I didn't tell him to do that. He just said, I did it. He recognized it and did it. So there's a lot of different aspects to it.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, being able to instill that from the very beginning. It's not necessarily, as a coach, it's your job to, I guess there's plenty of different jobs that a coach would have. It's obviously to lead the team training wise, performance wise, but at the same time it's being able to lead the team mentally. And part of that mentality, taken away from the individual aspect, this is individual swimming, but it's also in the massive team context. It's kind of you being able to drop the little breadcrumbs and pellets for them to actually take on to that.
College swimming is definitely the closest swimming gets, I think, to a real team sport.
For sure.
And that gets to something I wanted to ask. How has some of this stuff been impacted by the team being split now with the men and women more so than it was in the past? Has that had much of a change? Is it pretty similar? It's more of an administrative thing?
Well, that's a tough one for me right now to actually
I guess it's still fairly recent.
Because it's so early in the season. I would say my gut would be to say real easily, administratively, it's way different because there's a lot of stuff going on here. But as far as the team goes, it's tough for me a little bit tougher for me to get a grasp on that as I look at the dynamics. And I'm only seeing 50% of it now. I don't see how it affects the women's program, so I don't feel like I have a
full
real
picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I think. So I really don't know just yet, but I do know, and maybe it's because of the split, maybe it's not, but I do believe that our guys right now are a little more focused on everything. I told a coach came in and watched one of our practices recently, a non-Florida coach, a club coach came in, and it's from South Carolina, and he was asking me, and I said, I feel like this year the coaches only have to dial up our intensity to a 1, and we're getting the swimmers' response of a 9 or a 10. Whereas in the past, the coaches would have to get to a 10 just to get the swimmers to move from 1 to 2, from a volume on a stereo kind of thing. So I definitely think the focus is way dialed up when the coaches speak. They listen to a higher degree. They're learning to a quicker degree, and they're bringing that back from practice to practice to practice more consistently.
Yeah, that's great. Having done a little coaching now, that's nice when you get that. That's very useful.
You feel good. You feel good about yourself, huh?
Yeah.
Feel like you're doing a pretty good job.
It's a little more give and take, I feel like, and I feel like it'd be frustrating when you're not getting that give. When you're putting so much out, and you've coached levels of NCAA athletes, Olympians, you've coached NCAA championship relays, you've given so much to that, basically putting together all these different plans and training regimen. I guess if it's a matter of if they're not really reciprocating that effort, and if it's just kind of like going through the motions and coming through to practice and just doing everything, 2 to 4 is practice, 5 o'clock study hall, maybe 6 o'clock I'll eat something, then it doesn't really do much. But when they're actually giving something back to you, it's probably more fulfilling, right?
It definitely is. You definitely feel good about yourself. There are days when you walk out as a coach and I feel not so good about myself because I miss that connection with whoever it is. One guy can cause me to have a rough day, a rough night if I feel like I blew it with this guy, or I didn't say the right thing, or I pushed the wrong button, and instead of him performing better, he got angry and he performed worse. And so it feels really fulfilling when you walk out and you feel like, wow, the group did great, or I helped this guy perform at a higher level, whether it was practice or a meet, or, someone gets out of the pool and says, hey, thanks, coach. It was a good practice. I really appreciate this, or I really like that, or I like that set, or I think I did a good job on this. It makes you walk out of here feeling like you made a difference in someone else's life.
And that engagement helps, I think, figure that out, right? When you can have that give and take back and forth with an athlete, it helps you figure out what they need, from you more easily rather than when you have to kind of initiate everything.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like part of it was, you've been here plenty of years now, and obviously coming from the age group level of Florida swimming, club swimming, the whole thing was always Florida's a distance program. Florida doesn't have a sprint program. And I think that you especially have probably one of the biggest roles in having changed that over the last few years. And I think it's very, very distinguishably said that Florida is not just a distance program anymore. It's not mid-distance freestylers, it's not 4IMers, it's not any of that anymore. It is the program. It is the place that people want to go if you're a sprinter, if you're an IMer, if you're a distance swimmer, anything. So I guess, having coached guys like Caeleb Dressel, some of these massive names in sprinting, and just being an overall, generally sprint-based coach, what do you think kind of goes into that? What do you think's gone into, the past few years of actually kind of changing that? It's obviously performance-driven, but at the same time, there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, there is. And I appreciate that. Those are the kind words. That's really nice. I don't look at it, I guess, quite like that. I feel like I'm a small piece of the pie. I work closely with Matt Delancey, and I think all the coaches who have been here, Nesty, Wilby, Troy, Leah, everybody plays a role. And yes, our sprinting has done well over the past 8 years. And I think a lot goes into it from all of the coaches to create, to help create the results that we've created. When I first got here, I was told you're going to be the sprint coach, and we need you to focus on that and the administrative tasks here and there. And so I've always had, when I took over my last few programs as a head coach, I figured, hey, we better be good in the sprints because the relays need all the sprinters. They're double the points. So if you want to turn a program around, that's your cornerstone.
Pad our points.
Yeah, that's your quarterback right there, right?
That's your densest point gathering right there, yeah.
Yeah, so I've invested a lot of time, energy, and effort into that. And so coming in here, I thought, I've had some decent success, but not at this level, certainly. And so let's see how this works. And I guess this works pretty well.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I would say so.
Obviously, modesty is one of the biggest things with you, and it's a matter of, I think one of the biggest things is that you've actually figured out how to put the puzzle together. Balancing, the first person that you reference is someone like Matt Delancey, bringing in Anthony Nesty, that kind of stuff, it being a puzzle, not just being on one man's shoulders to be, the sprint program is my program and their success is my success, their failure is my failure.
A collaborative process.
There you go.
I think it has to be because, it's when you think about the results, and I go back to, everyone knows Caeleb's progress, from high school through the 17.6 and the sub 40 and the 100 and the first person to break 43 in the 100 fly, and it's unbelievable. It really is. Can anyone, if you only had one coach, could he have done that? And I would say emphatically no. And I say that because my background is coming from a one coach program. A one coach with a part-time, a one coach with 2 part-time, one coach with a couple of full, Here, I never had a nutritionist before coming here. I never had a full-time strength coach that could focus on only 3 sports. Even though Matt coaches a lot of athletes with track and volleyball, it's always been track, volleyball, football, a million sports. And then, so the resources we have here is really incredible, and it is a collaborative effort to get those awesome performances. But I think as far as what I do in the pool, there's got to be and I've thought about this a lot the last couple of years before giving my last talk. There are certain things I've moved towards when I do coach the sprinters, because I don't coach them all 9 or 10 sessions a week. I might get them for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 depending on the time of year. And I've noticed that a lot of the other coaches say, wow, you use fins and paddles a lot, Steve. why are you always using fins? Why are you always using fins? And after a while, I was like, well, why am I always using? I don't know. I know like instinctually why I'm using them. Yeah. And I believe it to be right, but I don't know how to verbalize that. And it took me a long time to figure it out. And I have a good reason for it.
Let's hear it.
Well, it's, as you said, Florida is known for our distance,
yes,
our volume. And we do
historically.
A massive volume.
Yeah.
And when you have a real sprinter, a true sprinter, Brad DeBoard, who's coming from 5 or 6 sessions a week, 5 or 6,000 a session, that's 25,000 a week. We knocked that out by Tuesday night here. All right, so how is this guy going to survive all these yards and without his stroke falling apart? And it doesn't. It falls apart. And so when I see it falling apart and I say, okay, I got him tomorrow, I'm going to put some fins on to help him stretch that stroke back out, to let him slow the hands down and work the legs to get that feel back, to get that long stroke back, because it's just always losing it. It's always losing it. So I have to bring it back,
I really like that.
So it was a matter of, part of your first question, the success of the sprint program, part of it was a matter, and I told Troy this right off the bat, it was a very, the staff here, Troy, Wilby, Nesty, had been together for 15 years by the time I got here. They had their way.
Yeah.
Right? I wasn't going to come in and change everything. Right? They're not hiring me to overhaul everything. They have a formula for success.
For sure.
My job was to figure out, how do I fit in within this formula, and make it work without blowing everything up. Right. And so that was one aspect of it in the water, of how to do it within this program. Would that work if I suddenly, had to go and work in another program in a different system that had different yardage volumes and different strength training programs? Would me doing the same thing here, if I did the same thing in a different program, would that work just as well or better? We don't really know.
Right, taking out the context of, everything else that's going on around it, right? Because you're kind of using that as that example is kind of like a way to get through some of that volume while still being able to hold your technical elements there.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I feel like that kind of gets into one of the things that I did want to ask you about, which is, I've never been lucky enough to be a sprinter. I wish I was.
Me neither.
But I think I've recognized that sprinting, there is this edge to sprinting where you really cannot screw up anything if you want to win the race.
Margin for error is low.
Exactly. A miler can, Nesty doesn't want to hear it, but you can breathe off a wall if you wanted to in the middle of a mile, and you're not going to lose the race maybe. But a sprinter, one lost breath, one lost kick, all that kind of stuff. Sure. So I guess the thing I wanted to pick your brain about a little bit is kind of like, and it speaks to the puzzle that you're talking about, putting all these coaches together. Do you go about thinking on an athlete-by-athlete basis about what we can accomplish, what our biggest benefit is? I'll use Caeleb as an example. Mm-hmm. Caeleb has arguably the greatest start in swimming. Sure. Starts, underwater breakout, everything there is incredible. Now, does Caeleb come in and you just recognize that and you're like, yeah, that's a good aspect of him. Once we add some strength and everything, it'll get better? Or do you selectively think that's one of his biggest assets, let's make it an even bigger asset? And then on the counter of that, do you see some of his weaknesses and you do work on those specifically? I guess I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but is there a specific regimen to kind of improve someone on a specific skill within the context of a sprint?
Yeah, well, I guess I would, in my mind, I think I have a framework of how much we work on different aspects of the performance: the start, the turn, the breakout, the stroke, the kicks, the timing, the breath control. But then, yes, you do have to, I feel like at this level in particular, you do have to individualize it.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you take Caeleb's starts, for example, he came in obviously with fantastic starts. I didn't want to overhaul them. With him, he was so gifted, and he is still so gifted naturally, that some of it, I always think back to the Bo Jackson 30 for 30, where the baseball coach, I think it was the baseball coach at Auburn, said, I didn't really coach him, I just kind of made a suggestion. Why don't you try it like this? I saw some of the pros doing it. And Bo would get up and try it and, knock it out of the park again, right? So yeah, that works. So I felt like coaching Caeleb was a little more like that than coaching a lot of the other guys, in that I remember one of his first days, I was trying to teach him a drill, and I explained to everybody, and he couldn't get the drill, and I thought, oh no, this guy's going to be this difficult to coach? And he picked his head up right away as he's dog paddling and looking up at the pool, and he goes, I don't get this. And I said, come here. And I come out. He hopped out of the pool. He watched someone do it for about a second and a half, and he looked at me. He goes, I got it. And he got in, and he did it perfectly. And I thought, okay,
visual learner. He'd see it.
So that's it. This is how we teach this guy. Instead of taking 10 minutes to explain, just show him one time for a second, and he's good. So with him, it was, what did you do at bowls for your starts? And he gave me a few drills that they did, and we touched on those every now and then, and then we tried to just fine tune little things here and there.
Yeah, that gets into something I was going to ask about. I think something I've always, fairly believed in is, trying to kind of tailor as much as you can to the individual, and just how, like, you would go about that, right? So, like, I think you kind of explained that a little bit with, like, Caeleb, right? That was a bit less of a, like, really, like, hands-on changing a lot of things, and kind of a bit more of, like, a guiding process, it seems like, versus you're going to have somebody who maybe comes in a little bit more rough. Like, how do you guys kind of manage that, right? Because you have a fairly large group. It's not like 5 guys.
Right.
You have a pretty decent size, so that has to be logistically. There's some work there, I would imagine, and that's where that, like, collaborative process, I'm sure, helps, having more eyes to help.
Yeah, it definitely is. And you're right. Teaching someone, using Brad as an example, I remember Brad's freshman year, it would take him weeks to learn a new skill. You'd explain it and you'd say, I want it. I remember explaining something to Brad one time, and I thought he got it, and I thought he was doing it in the water. And then 3 weeks later, he hopped out and he said something like, yeah, Marcin was telling me to try it like this, and so I tried it like that, and it works. And I thought in my head, I'm like, good, Brad. But I thought in my head, I said, that's the same thing I taught you 3 weeks ago. What? Yeah. But I let it go. He's got it. He feels good about it. That's
Sometimes
fine.
you just got to hear it from the right person or the right voice.
Marcin gets the credit for that one, and I don't. That's fine.
Props to Marcin.
So, yeah, everyone's a little bit different in that regard. And sometimes you have to spend, if someone's not getting it, like we have a few guys right now, that one guy I'm real concerned about on his catch on his freestyle. And I'm like, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time with this guy. A lot of it is going to be me staying vigilant and going back to him over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, every single practice. And then maybe sending him some videos, which I've done via take a video on the phone. And then I even told him, hey, now show me a video of the right example. Yeah. Find one on YouTube and send it back to me. The kid came back with 3 paragraphs written about his stroke, So a lot of it is, I tell them they have to take it. No one's going to give you anything at this level. No one's going to give you the gold medal. No one gives you an American record. No one's going to give you that Olympic team berth. You have to take it. And so if you want to fix that, I'm going to help you as much as I can, but you might need to come in and say, Coach, can we work on this now?
Yeah.
A half hour early, or you might need to stay late. And some of the guys do. Some of the guys will stay late. And I saw Christoph the other day up on the block. I said, guys, we're going home. Everyone's getting out, and he's getting on the blocks to do a few starts. I'm like, I'll stay for this.
Yeah.
I'll definitely stay for this. And and sure enough, 2 other guys hopped up on the blocks. They saw him, and they're like, well, I better stay too.
That's that, like, leading by example.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that creates that, like, culture that you want. That kind of helps form a team. Yeah.
I mean,
that's good.
I guess speaking to culture, which is a great kind of segue, is that you have a pretty large role in personnel. I mean, you do a lot of the recruiting side of things for the University of Florida, and obviously we've spoken about someone like Caeleb, who's, we can all agree, is complete raw talent. Like, he just comes in, he is just the most talented person in the pool, and then he adds that with the most work that I've seen any swimmer do in the pool and in the weight room. He's just this crazy athlete, and he can just come to the pool and he can do all that kind of stuff. You counter that with someone like Brad DeBoard, where he comes in not having done as much of the work in terms of, like, yardage, but he has talent built in there.
More of a raw kind of prospect.
Much more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then attached to Brad, because he obviously had some form of, like, a captain's role, and he was always a leader. I guess the real question would be, what are you actually looking for when you're looking into recruiting? And beyond that, is it beyond just looking at the times? Is it actually judging the character? And are you even able to judge the character through like a phone call or?
Yeah, there's a lot of variables that you look for. Yeah, you're right. Talent for sure. There has to be the minimum threshold of talent, and if there's not, that person better bring something else.
A lot of intangibles,
exceptional to the table, right? Yeah. We had a guy who walked onto the team. I remember he called me, I want to come. And we said, no, we're not taking you. No, we're not taking you. No, we're not taking you. And he called and said, I got in and I'm coming. And we put him on the club team. He's on the club team. And we said, if you make every practice and you get good grades, we'll consider you as a walk-on for your sophomore year. He was the first one at that club practice every day. When we were wrapping up, he was the first one to walk onto the pool deck and wait for that club team to start when we would get out of the pool. At the end of the first semester, we checked. We were like, the guy's got a 4.0. He's never missed a class. He's never missed a practice. We told him, we said, you're probably never going to score a point for the University of Florida. But if you can bring that to the table, then, you got a spot in the team. And he did. And he finished. He finished his next 3 years. He had a spot in the team and did a good job. He led by example really well. He pushed some of the other guys. He always got great grades. And, now he's got a real good job lined up for himself in Houston. So
that's great.
So, you look for different intangibles. You look for talent. You look for stroke mechanics. You look for height.
Yeah.
At this level, at the NC2A
length.
Yeah, the guys are big. Caeleb gets on the blocks for the 50s.
Caeleb
50 free is the shortest guy.
Crazy
up
vertical.
there. Yeah.
Like he could dunk a basketball, I think, easily pretty much when he came in.
Sure.
Yeah. That's actually something else I wanted to ask about was recruiting. That's changed a little bit, I know, like since I was going through that process. You can start a lot earlier. Have you seen any change like in that process from how it was before? Because you're talking to these kids, when they're right. You can start during their junior year, I think now.
Yeah. Now the new rule is you can't essentially their junior year. You can start everything. To simplify it.
Has that process like changed at all with that, right? Because you might have some like men especially, right, kind of can develop later, so does that make it a little bit trickier, right? Because you could be talking to somebody their junior year. There's a whole year before you're gonna see them walking on a pool deck. Is there any, impact there?
It does. You have to spend a little bit more time, whether it's on the phone or on Skype or whether they come visit. We've had some of our earliest commitments. Maxime Rooney was, at the time, the earliest commit in the country, and he committed, I think, verbally in January maybe or February of his junior year. But he had come to campus 2 or 3 times, I think, all the way from California. I know that we've had other people take 2 visits and then an official after that. So it's when you get to spend that much more time with them, then you find out more about them, and that helps as a coach you to decide, hey, are they really that? Is this the right person for this team?
And I imagine some of that process, definitely involves, talking to kind of, getting info from club coaches, people that are working with them at the time.
That can help drastically. I remember we were recruiting a guy who's on the team this year right now, and he's really good. And Coach Nesty was the one doing pretty much all of the recruiting on him. He was calling him, and he said, this guy's good. And we looked at his times. We knew he was good by his times. And but we wanted an unbiased opinion.
Yeah.
So he said, who do you know in that area? So I texted one of my buddies. I said, hey, ask around without asking around.
Right.
Is this guy a good guy? And he came back. He said, you want this guy. And he's a freshman on the team right now, and without a doubt, this guy's going to be one of our future leaders.
Wow. Well, I guess talking to how much earlier the recruiting process is getting and everything, let's talk more so into someone who would be listening, right? Coming from the aspect of a college recruiter.
You read my mind. I was about to get into that.
I'd say the first thing I wanted to get into would be social media. Do you look into a junior coming into college, and is it right away, boom, I'm looking at social media? Because that's what I would personally do, honestly.
Well, that's a good question. Other coaches,
Yeah.
all the other coaches might say yes,
Uh-huh.
but I am so new to I had no social media.
You're doing a good job with it
experience.
so far, man.
Until
liking it.
what, a month ago, 2 months ago, I started, and that was hysterical. If you ask some of the swimmers, my first few questions about Instagram, they just laughed at me. So I would imagine that, yeah, that's something that we'll check more and more as we get more comfortable with it. But it's so new to us right now. It's not one of our first
of course.
Outlets.
I mean,
but yeah.
in my perspective, there's a spectrum in terms of what you can do poorly on social media and how good of an athlete you're trying to be, and those meet pretty far away from each other. And my example would be someone like Caeleb Dressel isn't on Instagram putting up some stupid stuff because he doesn't do stupid stuff.
Right.
He's a dedicated athlete. He's a world-class athlete. He's a champion. He's not falling into that circumstance. So I guess it's a matter of, as a recruiter, you're not even going to be really coming along those kinds of people, because if they're at the level where they're competing heavily, they can be recruited to the University of Florida. They're not going to be putting on their Instagram or whatever on the weekends, them, doing stupid stuff, I guess.
That would, I'm sure if there was a recruit that we were going after and they were posting some inappropriate things or even if it was appropriate, but just enough to cause a red flag for someone who is trying to build a culture like we are here, or maintain a culture. I'm sure whether if I didn't spot it, one of the alum might, or the diving coach might, or our strength coach might, and it'll probably get back to us. That is something I remember. My niece has verbally committed to a school. She doesn't swim. She plays field hockey. But
cool.
One of the things I told her, I said, hey, if you're on social media, you better be careful because they're going to be looking for you. They're going to be looking out. And, so yeah, I'm sure coaches are going to look for that.
So I guess in terms of someone listening, if I know I hate doing this to myself, but if you were to give me like 3 things in terms of priority of what you're going to look at tangibly, if I were to give you a bunch of people on paper, what do you kind of rank higher than the others? And obviously this is a subjective thing. This isn't really an objective thing.
You're talking about guys in the realm of the talent pool we're looking for.
Exactly.
Yes.
But maybe not the Caeleb Dressel
Exactly. Yeah.
kind of guy who,
Right.
Winning junior
Kind of
nationals.
speaks for themselves.
World
they're-
junior record holders. And,
their resume precedes them, kind of.
Right. So how do you stand out from the crowd?
Exactly.
If you're in the crowd of the guys competing at the junior national level meets, but maybe you're not dominating the wins and all those, how do you stand out to a college coach for a Florida, Texas, or Georgia, one of the top 10 programs? We'll look at how you race. Do you race tough? Are your best races in the slow heats of the prelims, and then you come back in the B final or the A final and you fold under pressure? Do you handle that well? I remember at junior nationals this summer watching the reaction of one guy who was in a B or a C final, but he acted like he just won the gold medal at the Olympics.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, that's a little over the top. I don't know if we, it's a red flag. It's something to look into. I don't know. 3 things though. We definitely need people who can race. So that's definitely something.
They can compete.
Yeah, people that love to compete.
They're not going to get up on the blocks and, they're going to swim to the level of competition regardless of, not to the level of competition regardless, right? They're in a slower meet, they're going to still swim fast. They're against high competition, still swimming fast.
We're all thinking it. I'll say it. Eyeball to eyeball.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember.
Not like Ryan's mile at that one SEC.
Oh, no. You had to bring that one up. Oh, no.
Had to throw it on me.
A nightmare.
Nesty's not here. You'll be all right.
I remember one of your teammates, Ricky Munch.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was my recruit.
Yeah, so Ricky was a walk-on, basically a walk-on breaststroker, right? It was 57, 207.
Something like that,
school,
I think, yeah.
Right? But his classmates were the national high school record holder, Matt Elliott.
Yeah.
And then the guy who went on to be the national record holder of Spain, Eduardo Soleiche. And I remember early in their freshman year, Eduardo and Matt stepping on the blocks at the end of practice, and they're looking over, and they were going to race a 25 or a 50 breaststroke, right? No big deal, but they must have been going at it, right?
Yeah.
Verbally.
That sounds
talking
familiar.
trash,
Sounds like those guys.
Yeah.
So they get up, and what do I see? I see Ricky sprinting down the deck, running. And I'm looking. He gets up. He jumps up onto the block next to him. Me and Nesty looked. We were like, he's probably going to get smoked here, but he's not afraid.
Yeah.
He's not afraid.
Yeah.
And he raced like that all the time. He went to SECs his freshman year, and I think he A-finaled in the 100 breaststroke. You know, and so that's an intangible that you try to look for. You know, the other ones, there's so many. We like to have someone with a really good work ethic. I think that might be another top 3 to 5, you know, sure. Because Coach Nesty likes to work hard. I like to work hard. That's something we value. You know, even a lot of people think sprinters are guys that don't work hard. And I take a different tact. I tell them when I go and work a sprint camp, and when I work with Cam, I tell them our sprinters work hard. And when I get the sprinters together, I say I expect you guys to work really hard. There's the intervals might not be hard, but you need to have the ability to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation.
It might be a little bit different kind of work, but that doesn't mean it's not still hard work.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to be able to dial that up.
Yeah.
You have to be able to give 100%, because 99% is nothing. 100% is where we need to be. Yeah. And if you don't have that ability to push yourself into an uncomfortable zone, you're not going to be a very good sprinter at this level. And I tell them, you know, go and choose the 200 IM or the 500 on day one, because, you know, the 50 is probably not going to be your forte.
Yeah.
Because no matter how talented you are these days, there's just too many talented people out there.
Yeah.
Especially in swimming.
Yeah.
Swimming is blowing up these days. So I know you have to go to practice, but I'll let you finish with anything that you want to add. Otherwise, we can follow you on what social media? I know it's new, but let's hear it.
I don't even know. I have to check here. What's my Instagram? I think it's.
That's how new we are.
Where do I find my little tag name? What do you call it? I think
handle.
My
Your
handle
Instagram handle.
is, how do I bring that up?
There you go.
I'm showing my age here
At
too.
Steve Jungbluth. We'll put it in the show notes. At Steve Jungbluth on Instagram. You've been putting up some really cool content with the team so far. I really appreciate it. I think it's cool to have kind of this veil lifted a little bit from the team, being able to see that kind of stuff. So
you're gonna be getting any of the content up from some of the drone stuff? That's good content. You know, you're looking to put. You're starting up the Instagram.
I got to increase my piloting skills first.
Okay.
I can show you some good crashes, but.
I remember you were just getting started in some of that stuff when I was here. Some of the RC car stuff.
I'm getting a little better. I'm getting a little better now.
We're going to have to
take
him for a spin.
I like that. Yeah.
Take him for a spin. Well, Steve, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Coach Steve Jungbluth. That was an amazing interview, huh?
It was great to talk to him again. It'd been a little while since I had gotten a chance to speak with him, so it was really good to pick his brain on all the changes going on, you know, what he's observed.
Yeah.
Now versus back when I was around the team.
Exactly. One of the cool things that you almost notice is, you know, when you're in college swimming, you get so deep into the team. These are the guys that you're in the trenches with.
Yeah.
You're at, you know, every single practice, swimming all this yardage. Once you're done with practice, you go to the cafeteria, and then maybe you're in a class with everyone, and then you come back to practice. Everything is the team, and you're so close with everyone. And the thing that you notice after a few years on the team, once you leave the team and you come back and you visit, is almost every year is different. And every year there's a different roster, but there's also different like personality to the team. There's a different culture every single year. I thought it was really interesting how he spoke to, you know, this year's squad with the scale attribute that you were talking about. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think he was, it sounds like he's pretty positive on this year's group. You know, they have a lot of great camaraderie.
Yep.
You know, it's like you're talking about. Those people are, you know, it's not just 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon of swimming. You know, it's, you go eat together. You have a lot of classes together. You know, go to football games together. It's really your comrades, you know.
On one of the years that I was on the UF team and you were there, there was basically like a captain, you know, there was a team of captains almost. There was a dynamic where there was a guy that wasn't the fastest, but he was the smartest on the team. There was a guy that was the fastest, but didn't have as much academic push as he needed to be. And then there was a guy that was a true team captain, like literally would sacrifice his body, sacrifice his academics, everything for the team. And like Steve's talking about, one year they came up to him when they were ready for the captainship and they said, hey, look, we don't want one captain. We want to all be captains.
Yeah.
I think that's super interesting because teams, you know, there's normally going to be a leader. There's going to be the head quarterback of the football team, that kind of stuff. But when you really know that you have a strong and powerful team and all that camaraderie, that speaks to, you know, especially Steve with his military background, coaching in military schools.
Yeah.
It speaks to how he basically raises the team, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks highly of a group when you have not just essentially one leader. You know, you have a whole group of them, right? You know, you have a group of people who, like your example, right, that they were willing to share that responsibility, you know, share that power, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think it's impressive to me that, you know, the coaches are willing to, you know, like Steve and Coach Nasty, you know, the coaches there now, Coach Troy in the past, you know, willing to adapt and, you know, year to year take that approach of, you know, what does this team need? You know, what does this year need?
Yep.
Right. And I think that gets into another point that I liked that he was making, you know, that I found interesting now being on the coaching side of things, was just the, you know, the dynamic of how the team this year responds versus teams in past years.
Yep.
You know, similar to what we've talked about in our other interview, right, with Dave Geyer, coach at LSU, you know, about bringing the sauce, you know, or, you know, bringing energy to a group, right? It sounds like this year responds a little bit differently, say, to, you know, something like my year, right, where I think there was some need to maybe the coaches to initiate a little bit more. It seems like this year they can kind of be a little easier on the gas, so to speak, and get a really strong response from the team.
For sure.
You know, that just speaks to the fluid nature of team building.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like you can just necessarily say, okay, we're going to do X, Y, and Z and just copy paste 2014, 2015, 2016. You have to adjust those variables every year, right?
Different
if you want to be successful.
Different strengths, different weaknesses. And I think, myself included, whenever people really think of the military, it sounds very intimidating
And rigid.
Yes. But the way, you know, knowing Steve, being so close to Steve and knowing how he implements some of that militaristic mindset, there's all positivity from it, because, you know, you go into this circumstance where, you know, during captain's practices, you won't even see the coaches on deck or around the offices, but you'll have the massive team waking up at 5 a.m., doing runs together, doing stadiums together. Nobody's faltering. Nobody's, you know, saying, oh, I'm hurt, I'm this, I'm that. Everybody's just bought in. And the moment you can get your squad bought in, there's less work on the coach. And it's more so like, if you're going to get a job and you had, you know, your boss had to convince you to do your job every day. It's no, you have a job and you're there to do a job. And by buying in like that with that militaristic mindset, you have a lot more fun, because everybody's there for you.
You want to get some of those core, you know, kind of foundational attributes that you need for a successful team to be self-sustaining, right? You don't want to have to, every day I come into practice, you know, I have to be on people about making sure they have equipment, or about, you know, being on time, or making sure you're giving a correct effort, right? You want the team to kind of police itself to an extent on those things, so that you can then kind of build off of that into the higher level, you know, more advanced things, you know, about getting into specific stuff technically or training wise, and you can divide up the groups a little bit more. You know, if you know that, okay, if I break them into these 3 groups, I have enough of a cohesive team, or I have enough leaders that I'm going to have somebody in each spot, you know, that's going to kind of take the lead. Whereas if you don't have that, right, then you spend a lot more of your time on kind of those essentials, and then you don't ever get to those higher level elements. And so I think that's something that's been a big factor to the sustained level of success that men's team has had there the past few years, right? You know, there's a long period of time, including the first year, you know, first year or two that I was there, right, where, you know, that men's team was annually second place at that SEC championship meet, right? I think it was like 15 years in a row. Since then, they've been winning that every year.
They're running it.
And I think that's a big part of that culture that's been instituted there.
And who does it take to implement a culture? A good coach. So we appreciate you, Coach Jungbluth. Thanks for sitting down with us, everybody.
Great to talk to you.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you have not already, please help us support the podcast. Head on over to anywhere you listen to podcasts: Google Play, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, wherever. YouTube as well, And leave a comment on our YouTube videos. Ask us any questions. We plan on doing as many questions and answers, and reaching out and basically answering the topics that you guys want to see.
Exactly.
So we will catch you in the next one, and thanks for watching. Peace.
See ya.